Welcome back to Texas College Talks. This is episode 4, and we're joined by a very special guest, a pitcher for the Miami Marlins, Lewis Head. Thanks for coming on and give us a little intro.
Hey, what's guys? I'm Lewis Head. I'm with the Miami Marlins. Last year I played with the Tampa Bay Rays. I'm from Texas. I used to coach Kel back when he was in high school, and when he used to pick where was that site, the Cy Fair, Cy Ranch, when he played
Yeah,
at with the Rise. So I played ball at Texas Tech and Texas State University, where I was drafted out of, and then made my way in the minor leagues through Cleveland, Dodgers, Seattle, and then was finally called up by Tampa last year.
that, that's awesome. And something they may not know is you spent quite a time in the minor leagues too. You had a grind to make it.
Yeah, I spent my first 7 years of my contract with Cleveland in the minor leagues. When I first got drafted by them, they weren't very good, so it was promising. I moved up to Double A quick, but then they became World Series contenders and had the best bullpen in the big leagues, one of the best starting staffs. So it wasn't just me. A lot of people in the organization came to a halt of where they went. There's a lot of guys that were big leaguers that didn't get called up when I was there, and I was probably one of them as well. And then unfortunately, I was sidelined in 18 in my 7th year of my contract, and then I was released at the end of the season. I dealt with the shoulder impingement pretty much the whole year, and then went on to the Dodgers. I played. When I went there, I ended up going to extended spring training out of camp, which is like, if you didn't make a double A or triple A team, they'll kind of send you there. And I went there for 3 days, and then they sent me out to double A. Pitched really well, was called up to triple A, but then I was kind of bouncing back and forth that year. And then I ended up staying up in triple A. And I was sidelined with an injury that year. I actually got some at bats. And I was running the bases, and I pulled both of my hamstrings. And so I missed the remainder of that season. And then 2020 came along, signed a deal with Seattle, like right at the end of January, for a minor league camp deal, a double A deal. And then spring training came along, and then COVID. I played one game, and then I was about to pitch my second game. It got rained out the next day. COVID. It actually rained in the middle. It rained in like the 7th inning. I was supposed to pitch the 9th, and then the next day COVID hit, and baseball went on a lockdown. I think we all went into lockdown for a little bit, and then and like they kind of kept us on like a really small salary for it was like a couple $100 every couple of weeks, or like $400 every couple of weeks. And then they in the beginning of June I got released, and then pretty much me and my wife, we like talked, and I did unemployment for a little bit because government was paying pretty well at that point, and then ended up having to get a job selling. I was going door to door selling solar panels. We'd pretty much talked like my baseball career was pretty much over. We'd moved on. We were ready to kind of just start our lives and start a family, and we were planning to get a house and stuff. And then that's when the Rays called. I think there was I probably selling solar panels for 7 months at this point, 8 months. And then the Rays called, and there was 2 or 3 weeks before spring training, and I hadn't done anything. So they gave me like a week to get ready. And then I threw a pretty good bullpen. They ended up inviting me to spring training, the big league camp. And then, I did. Everything's kind of, the rest is you can kind of all see online. It's, I had a successful spring training, went to the alternate site, was very successful there, was called up to the big leagues from the alternate site. And then on my birthday, my 31st birthday, which was cool, made my debut a couple days later. I think, were you at the game on my
I,
debut?
I wasn't at the debut game, but I was at your first Astros bout.
Okay. Yeah, so you were there to see my first runs given up.
Yep, I was, unfortunately. But I saw many more scoreless outings.
So were my parents. And that was still fun. Like in perspective, like giving up 4 runs in the major leagues against your hometown team is way cooler than, it was worth all the years in the minor leagues, worth all the doors I knocked to give up those runs. So it was well worth it. And then, I had the good season the rest of the year, and did really well in AAA as well.
That's awesome. It's quite the incredible story. I wanted to mention too, you got the Astros back on their
Yeah,
home turf.
yeah, I got one out. Chas McCormick. I think Bregman was on second base, and I mean, Bregman does such a good job of picking up like tips that pitchers do. I mean, he does it. He's very good at it. He's been doing it for a long time, and he sees different hand gestures and whatnot, and he's able to relay signs. And I think they had something on me. I don't know for a fact, and maybe they didn't, but I know they picked up on it the first game, and so I kind of tried to like deke a little bit. I tried to give up my tell on the opposite pitch. So I was throwing a slider, and I tip on my fastball. I would wiggle my fingers. I changed that up now to where I wiggle my fingers on every time I grip the baseball. But I used to not wiggle on a slider, and then I would wiggle on a fastball. So I was throwing a slider, and I wiggled my fingers like I would a fastball, and I threw a slider, and he swung and missed. So that was, I'm not sure if that was it or not, but might have been how they got me the first time.
Some sort of revenge. So you had a 2.31 ERA, 35 innings, 32 Ks. Those are some pretty great numbers, especially for a team that won 100 games. Was that exciting being around for a 100-win team? I mean, it's got to be.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I mean, not only cracking the big leagues, but cracking the big leagues, one of the best bullpens in the air, not the best bullpen in baseball last year, and 100-win team. It was truly special. All those guys. I mean, we felt like a family. I mean, even though I wasn't there the whole year, they treated me like I was, and they always, every time I came up, they're always so happy to see me, and like they never wanted me to leave. They really made me feel like I was like a part of the team and like a family with them.
So they didn't want you to leave, but you did have, I think, the most options in MLB history, didn't you?
I tied it, I believe,
Tied it.
or I could have said it. I'm not sure. I never got anything officially back on. I know I set the Rays franchise record. And I want to say Donnie Hart might have been optioned 12 times in a year with the Orioles.
And
So
he's the
it's,
Sam Houston guy.
yeah, he's from Seven Lakes High School. So,
Wow.
and we played at Texas State together too. So yeah, I would say he might have been optioned 12 times with Baltimore. And I know there's been guys with the Yankees close at like 11. But yeah, it was a whirlwind. And I was called up. I didn't play the first month of the season, so it was the last 5 months of the season I was optioned 12 times. So it was a crazy year.
So and you're recently married to Miss Jenny Head, which
Yes.
congratulations.
Yeah, we just had
And
our first year 2 days ago.
first year, congratulations. So
Yeah.
how does that work out? Just traveling back and forth. I mean, the excitement of Major League Baseball and a new family.
Yeah, so she luckily her job back in Arizona allowed her to work remote, so she was able to come in season last year and travel with me. And for the most part, I mean, there was a lot of trips she couldn't make that I know she wanted to be there, and she was in Durham a lot of the year, and because I was mostly in Durham, and then but she would every time I was in the big league, she'd come. If I was
That's
in
awesome.
Tampa, and we always tried to make it work. We kind of made a promise that like when I got picked up by Tampa and like, then I made it to the big leagues that she wasn't going to, I mean, she was going to try to make as many games as she could. And she still is. Like, we still got plans for her to travel in season next year to some of the cities she wants to go to, but then she'll be at all the home games. And hopefully I'm there to stay in Miami the whole year. But, I mean, we see how the system works. There still could be times where I go back to AAA and whatnot just because I have options.
Well, we're wishing you a full season. You're fun to watch, and I wanted to give a shout out to the Rays community just because I did the Rays Love Head,
Yeah.
and they supported you. They loved you to death, and they're
Yeah.
they're a little sad you weren't on the postseason roster too.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was a little sad too. I mean, obviously, we all want to be that, but I understand. I mean, it just good. It just speaks the magnitude of how good that team was. I mean, like I was sitting there with the 2.3 ERA, and I didn't make the postseason roster. I mean, that's how good everybody on that team was. I mean, everybody that made that roster deserved it. So, as much as I wanted to be there, there's a lot of other guys that deserve to be there too. But yeah,
Because the team runs deeper than just the roster too.
100%, 100%.
I can't believe too that you got caught up to my favorite team. I had to
Yes.
come. If you don't know, I lived in St. Pete, Tampa area when summer was over for school and baseball, and I came out there and got to watch Lewis play and meet some cool people where I wanted to live before college ended. So
Yeah.
it's quite the experience. Thank you
There's
for leaving me tickets.
no problem. There's some of those fans. Yeah, they were upset. They were like messaging me on Twitter and Instagram saying they were like going to miss me and stuff, and like they wish that I wasn't traded. So it was good. It was good seeing all that and like the support I had. I think you were a lot to do with that. You know, you definitely got a lot of the fans go cheering for me at the games and stuff.
We tried to get some chants going too in the stadium. It'd be cool to have your own chant, huh?
Yeah,
We'll work on it in Miami.
yeah.
We're
It's
gonna come
actually
out there in the summer.
when I mean I'm not going to be this number. When I got to Miami, they were like asking me what number I wanted to be because Jacob Stallings is also 58 with Pittsburgh,
Mhm.
and just joke. I told him I wanted number 69 because my last name's Head. And I was like, thought it'd be funny. In the club, he like kind of choked up. He's like, I don't know if we can do that. I was like, I'm just kidding. Like, just send me a list of numbers that you got, and I picked one. I'm going to be 38 this year. But when I got to camp and they actually had a jersey, it says Head 69 on it.
Oh, that's awesome. Did you
Take
keep
home.
it?
Yeah, I'm going to keep it. And I
That's
think
awesome.
I'll probably frame it up, and maybe one day if they have a players weekend, maybe the MLB will let me do it, but I doubt the MLB will let me wear that number.
That'd be so cool.
Yeah.
So you played college ball, just switching tracks. You played college ball at Texas State and Texas Tech, but since you got drafted out of Texas State, you're a little more of a Bobcat for life, or are you still Red Raider for life too?
I mean, Bobcats. If Bobcats are playing Tech, I'm going Bobcats. But I still do
Okay.
root for. That's the school I chose. That's the school I wanted to go to. That's the school I wanted to get drafted from. Things didn't work out the way they probably should have. I don't think me and the coach quite got along, and then I didn't necessarily perform that well. And I was on a big scholarship, so I think I was actually might have been on a biggest scholarship at the time, and they needed to free up some space, and I wasn't performing. So I kind of understood why I had gotten cut, but I still probably, even with all that, not performing well, I still probably would have been drafted out of there my junior year. So kind of cost me a year, and I was a little salty about that. I couldn't go JUCO because I'd already played 2 seasons. I didn't think about going Division II or Division III. I kind of just thought I was going to go to school at Texas State, and then those coaches I played with a guy, Andrew Stump, out of Katy High School, and he was the catcher for Texas State at the time, and he like told the coaches like, hey, like he's coming to school here, and so they gave me like a walk-on trial, and I ended up making the team. And then their coach like really took like trying to get me better to heart. Like I think at Tech I kind of got in a bad spot mentally and couldn't throw strikes. I was still throwing hard, still had good off speed, but I just couldn't throw it over the plate. And then at Texas State they really focused on like my mental game and like trying to get me into routine and getting me like stronger, and then getting my fastball and slider over the plate. And then so like Derek Matlock was my pitching coach then. I think he's at UT, the head coach at UTRGV now. And so I owe a lot to him and to Texas State for just allowing me that opportunity. So anytime anytime I see them on, I'm rooting for them.
That's awesome. Before I ask you another question, I wanted to mention your Texas State Bobcats are 18-3 and riding an 8-game win streak right now, and they look good.
Yeah, they're nasty.
Love it. So you mentioned the mental game and a little bit of not having guys pick your signs.
Yeah.
What is the sign system? Obviously not what signs, but what is the sign system like in the majors?
So it's different for each player, and team to team. Like some teams have like Tampa. Sometimes we would have like, they allow some players to do their own sign steps. I throw 2 pitches, so sign sets I can get super simple and they're super hard to pick up. And I'll get into that in a little bit. But then other teams have they'll give you a card. So like Tampa would give. Anytime a new pitcher would come into the game, you'd get a new card. And some of the cards would have 5 set of signs, some of the cards would have 3 set of signs, some of the cards might even have like 8. And so you could just like throw the catcher, I want 3, or it'd probably be 5 sets because you only got 5 fingers. So I want set 5, I want set 4, I want set 2 this time, and you could switch it up mid pitch. So a lot of times is like if you think the runner on second's picking it up, or you just know the team's good at picking it up, then what you'll do is you'll just switch up the sign set like on pitch 2 or 3, or you'll just switch it up when the next batter comes up. And usually once you switch it up, that runner gives up on it. They're not trying to figure out a second sign set. And especially if you do something that's not simple, like if you do the second sign, or you do third sign, or you do first sign, or you do last sign, or chase the wiggle, chase the 2, anything like that, like hitters will pick up, like they remember, like a lot of those guys that are good at it remember every single number in there, and they'll figure it out real quick just based on what's gone. And like, so having to get a little creative, like what I would do, and I'm changing it up this year, and I'm not going to say it out here because I don't know who.
Oh, please don't.
Yeah, but last year what I would do is like if the catcher's glove was on the knee, it was like on top of his knee. So say like it's hard to show, but if it was on top of his knee, it would be a fastball. If it was hanging down to like just off to the side of his knee, it was a slider. And then he'd go through his sign sets, and he just had the glove there. And if I shook off, he could move his glove to the other spot, but it was automatically the next pitch. So it didn't matter. Like he would just go through the sign sets. He could move his glove, put it wherever he wants. But if he called a slider and I shook off, it was fastball next pitch. If I shook off a second time, it was back to the original pitch he called. And then the other sign set I would use would be odds and evens. So if like the first 2 set of signs added up to an even number, it was a fastball. If it added up to an odd number, it was a slider. And if I shook off, same thing, it'd be the next pitch. And if I shook off again, it'd be the first pitch he called.
That's slightly intricate, but nothing you can't handle.
Yeah, exactly. And
it's really cool to hear too.
Yeah, there's other stuff. I mean, it gets complicated, and there's guys that say stuff that I don't even, know what they're saying and calling. But I've done stuff as stupid as like, if you put down a 3, it's a fastball. If you put down a 1, it's a slider, and then you just go through some random signs.
Got you.
But you can honestly keep it super simple. You can keep it second sign, you can keep it third sign, you can keep it chase the 2 or chase the 3. But you just want to make sure that you're mixing it up a lot. Like you want to change it. If you're going to do stuff that's simple like that, you want to change it up at least twice in at bat if there's a runner on second.
That's awesome. I know it.
Yeah.
When we were playing, we had a bunch of like touchy feely, and we'd have like 4 things you could go through, whatever you wanted.
I like what Vanderbilt's doing, and some of the colleges they're going to electronic. I mean, dude, that's going to save time. That's going to save, runners stealing signs. You're not going to have to go through crazy sign sequences. Just select your pitch, and then you're good to go. And I think that, and then not only that, your shortstop, your second baseman, your center fielder. I mean, if all the position players want it, they can see what pitch is coming to. So now you can kind of be ready defensively based on you don't necessarily have to shade, but they can anticipate which direction it's going to go based on the pitch that's being thrown. So that's what I know the MLB is going to test it out this year at some levels, and I think that'd be something that'd be cool to put into effect. The only problem is now your teams may hack the system and figure out what sign they may hack your electronics, and I don't know how if another team has something where they can start seeing what pitch you're throwing, and like if you select it, they see it, and like so I don't know how I guess you could. I don't know.
It could get real hackery out there.
I mean, there's always cheating going on in some form or factor. So, who knows what they're going to do if that stuff like that.
It's the beauty of the game, though. That's why baseball's baseball.
Automatic strike zones. How do you know, like at the stadiums, people aren't going to alter the TrackMan a little bit to give their team a slight advantage on the strike zone versus giving the opponent a smaller strike zone, and then giving their hitters, giving their hitters a smaller strike zone and giving the opponent's hitters a bigger strike zone. So, it makes it harder to hit when their pitchers are making pitches an inch off the plate. So that would get interesting too. But, I'm sure they'll have some defense mechanisms in place to stop that from happening.
I've heard they're coming. I worked in the Skeeters press box, and I was with the umpire official, and he said it's coming.
Yeah, they're doing it in AAA this next year, the automatic strike zone. I guess it's come a long way now that they use Hawkeye. Hawkeye is a little bit more accurate. It's what they use in tennis to track the tennis. So it's, I think TrackMan, what they've used in the past, can determine the distance of a home run within I want to say 20 feet is pretty accurate. And then these Hawkeyes are within 2 inches of where a home run would land. So they're a lot more accurate. They have a lot more cameras and lasers and whatnot. track
The
and
tech,
stuff.
the technology is unreal. I remember
Yeah.
you texting me like my numbers look better. Like go check fan graphs. Like threw my hardest pitch of the year
Yeah, I actually threw pretty hard my first spring training game out here. I was pretty shocked because I mean
against the Astros.
I was about three miles an hour harder that game than I was at this time last year. So hopefully I'm in a good spot this next season.
And you were a DST guy as well. We've had a lot of interaction with DST guys,
Yeah,
Poppy and Wesneski.
I've trained there for 8 years now.
And you hooked me up and got me in there, and I'm grateful for that always.
Yeah.
Just pure baseball out there.
Yeah, you go out there and play fungo golf now, right? Or something like that.
Sometimes you're supposed to do it, but you're a busy man.
Yeah, I honestly we ended up so our house is on Airbnb now, and then we ended up we really liked it out here in like West Palm, Jupiter area where the spring training complex is out. So we're not sure where we're going to be this year, but we'll either be back here or in Arizona. We kind of like it in these two cities.
It's awesome.
Yeah, Lake Conroe is kind of out in the middle of nowhere, but it's a nice place to have a house on the water.
So can I ask you about trade culture real quick before we get into some fun questions?
Yeah.
How is it searching for homes? Because you were definitely on the trade bubble last year. I remember every time I got a notification, I was like, please don't be Lewis.
Yeah. So what do you mean? Like how do we end up picking the house we chose?
Yeah,
Or,
that and like how now you're in Miami. How does house hunting, having a
oh,
car go?
so we work with an app. It's called Landing. They pretty much it's corporate housing. So pretty much it allows us. We do a 12-month membership with them, and it's like a 12-month apartment lease through them. But we're able to change our lease from city to city with the. So if say I'm in an apartment right out here in West Palm. I gave them a 14-day notice a couple of weeks ago, and we have an apartment lease within Landing in Miami now at the start of April. So we just transfer the apartment from West Palm to Landing, and it's you pay on the price based on the city, but it allows us to rent out places month to month, which is easy, especially with baseball. So if I were to be traded from Miami to across the country, we're able to give the apartment a 14-day notice, and then we can transfer to another Landing in whatever city that may be. And we chose our house in Texas because that's where we're from. We just wanted to have a place close to our family and just kind of invest into something and start an Airbnb with it.
That's awesome. Glad you're staying in Florida too. It's not a bad place to play some ball.
Oh yeah, we like it out here. It's nice. The beaches out here in Jupiter are pretty nice.
I'm yet to discover, but I think it's coming soon. Hopefully I
Yeah.
get in the MLB game after college. I'd love to cover some MLB if I'm not playing.
Yeah.
So we want to get into a few fun questions now, if you're cool with that. Wrap it up here.
Yeah.
All right. How are we feeling about Jorge Soler becoming a Marlin?
I love that. I mean, that's a huge bat for this lineup. We got a lot of, we got a lot of young talent here with some good veterans in the mix. We got Sandy Alcantara starting. You got Pablo Lopez and then Trevor Rogers and Jesus Luzardo that I think are going to be huge for us this year. So having that addition of Jorge Soler, I'm just like solidifying a power bat in this lineup is going to be huge for us. And he seems to get the job done when it matters. And I mean that showed with this World Series MVP. So it's huge getting a guy that's done it in the World Series as part of your team, especially when we're trying to make a playoff push in a World Series round.
Definitely.
I know a lot of like fans over here were wanting them to go out and sign these big name guys, but like, I mean, dude, you got to look at some of these guys coming up. They're going to be big names. Lewin Diaz, Jesus Sanchez. I mean, like, I wouldn't forget those names. Those guys are some big bats that I faced this last year in AAA, and they're in Jacksonville. And I mean, they've had super successful minor league careers, and they're going to be a big piece of us this year. And then, maybe if they can solidify one more bat, I mean, that would be icing on the cake. But I think right now, as it stands, like our lineup's going to be pretty good, especially now that Brian Anderson's healthy. And, we got some guys that are going to really contribute to this team this year. Joey Wendell traded over here. I mean, Joey Wendell's a huge piece to have. I mean, you saw him in Tampa. I mean, he's an all-star, and he's he's going to be our utility guy kind of doing exactly what he did in Tampa, just playing pretty much every position.
And Jazz Chisholm, man, I
Oh,
love that guy.
he's pretty cool, dude. I like
I,
him.
he's so fun to watch.
Yeah.
He's like the Tatis that doesn't get the coverage. Maybe a few less long balls, but they're so flary.
Right. And then, and then a lot of people forget Jacob Stallings won a Gold Glove last year. So, I mean, that was
And
a
he
huge.
rakes.
Yeah, and he's one of the best receiving catchers. I mean, if not the best receiving catcher in the game. So he's gonna be stealing a lot of strikes for already a pretty dominant pitching staff. I mean, even if you go and look into the Miami's bullpen, I mean, including me, I think we had 5 guys with the sub-3 ERA last year, and with a FIP of sub-3.5. So I mean, we got a solid staff going into this next season, and across the board, from starters to relievers, and even some good young relievers that will be in the mix this year that are healthy that we're looking forward to. So I think Miami has a really good shot of making a postseason this year, especially with the expanded playoffs. That helps out a lot. But this NL East division won't be easy.
I look forward to seeing you face Juan Soto.
Yeah. I mean, you got that, and then I mean, just look at the Braves lineup, the Mets. I mean, it's just like it kind of feels like the AL East. I mean, it's going to be just these East Coast teams seem to really have some strong lineups, but it makes it fun to pitch against these strong lineups.
It's so fun. I cannot wait to watch this. I'll be having like college baseball on like 5 screens, and then all the MLB on the other, and be like the Lewis Head watcher.
Nice.
But
Yeah.
I got 2 more trivia questions for you. There are 2 trivia questions for you.
All right.
So can you name the one Yankee you hit with the pitch last year?
Aaron Judge.
Yeah, we had a fun time on Twitter with that one. Just wanted to see.
On a slide.
And then
he's twice my size.
Ginormous.
Yeah.
I was at the game where Cole pitched at Minute Maid this last year, and he hit a solo home run. It was the only run scored of the game. It went on the railroad. Crazy power. No,
Wait.
Cole was pitching versus the Astros. I think it was Lance versus Cole.
Oh, okay.
And the Judge hit one about 546 feet.
Oh yeah, he's a monster. He's insane bat. Him and Stanton have the same bat speed, and Judge has really good bat control. He's probably the toughest out on that team that I had to face last year. I think even when I made him good pitches, he was able to get hits. I don't know if I got him out, but maybe once. But it seemed like I've made good pitches, and he still find a way to put a bat on it and find a hole.
He did hit a lot of Texas leaguers off you. I remember those.
Yeah.
So my final question on trivia: can you name the first 2 batters you faced in your debut?
Yeah. So I started off facing Bo Bichette, and I threw him. I mean, I could probably tell you the pitch sequence. I think to him at least, I think I went slider, 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 line out to second. And then I faced Vladimir Guerrero Jr. second, and I got behind him 2-0. And then I went slider, or maybe I went slider, fastball, slider, and got him to ground out to first base. And then I faced, I can tell you my third batter too, Randall Grichuk, he's a Houston guy, and I played with in Houston growing up. So it was kind of cool to face him in my first outing.
That's awesome. Well, I want to thank you for your time and coming on here. It means a lot to me and some of the fans. And I wanted to give one shout out to the Cowbell kid.
Oh, yeah.
When you let us stay down with the team afterwards, you made this guy's life. He got to meet all the Rays, and just meant a lot for him in the community. So thank you, Lewis.
That's awesome. Yeah, I'm glad I could do that. And thank you for thinking of me and bringing me on here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for coming on. You guys follow Lewis Head Jr. on Twitter, Instagram, and on MLB Baseball Reference. He's fun to watch. And if you don't mind, I got one more. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This is my math side. I did the math on all the relievers last year for MLB The Show, and you were a 70 at the highest. Yet if the rankings lined up, if the stats lined up, you should have been an 86 diamond.
Yeah, dude, I feel that. I like that rating. We need to get MLB The Show to bring that up.
We'll see what we can push for him this year. But thank you again, Lewis.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks, y'all.